Cosmological arguments have been around for thousands of years, even dating back to Aristotle. They all attempt to prove some kind of first cause or necessary being that was not itself caused or created or contingent. One version of the cosmological argument that's become very popular in recent years, largely due to the work of philosopher William Lane Craig, is the Kalam Cosmological argument. The argument goes as follows. Premise 1, whatever begins to exist has a cause. Premise 2, the universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause. The defense for the first premise, that whatever begins to exist has a cause, typically relies at least somewhat on rational intuition. That is, it just seems intuitively true. It doesn't make sense that something could just pop into being out of nothing for utterly no reason. To many people, this fact is just so obvious, it's simply taken as foundational. That said, there's at least one reason to support the idea that something can't come from nothing. If things really could come into being from nothing, then it doesn't make any sense why anything and everything couldn't come from nothing. Quoting from William Lane Craig, why is it only universes which can come out of nothing? What makes nothingness so discriminatory? It makes sense that if things could come into being from nothing, then we should see things popping into existence all the time. But the fact that we don't see things popping into existence for no reason all the time supports the idea that things just can't come from nothing. The defense for the second premise, that the universe began to exist, is to argue that it's impossible for the series of past events in the universe to be infinite. In other words, the past must be finite. In arguing for this, a distinction is made between a potential infinity and an actual infinity. A potential infinity is a set that is constantly increasing towards infinity but never reaches it. For example, imagine a number that's constantly added to by 1. You can just keep adding 1 to it forever and ever and ever, and it'll keep getting bigger and bigger. There's no limit to how big it can get. But it will never actually reach infinity. It'll only ever be a bigger finite number. On the other hand, an actual infinity is a set or collection of things which consists of an infinite number of members. It's not constantly getting bigger or smaller. It just exists, and the number of elements it has in it is equal to infinity. An example of this would be the set of all natural numbers. If the past were infinite, it would have to be an actual infinity, not a potential infinity. Now, why is this? Well, it's because the past has already happened. All those events have already been actualized. So, if the past is infinite, then it has to be an actual infinity. So, if the past is infinite, then it must truly be actually infinite. Typically, proponents of the argument try to show that it's impossible for any kind of actually infinite thing to exist in reality. But for this argument, you really don't need to go that far. All you need to show is that the past can't be actually infinite. Isn't the flow of time just one event happening after another event, happening after another event, and so on? That's the exact same process as we saw with the number that was always added to by 1. But if time is just a successive addition of events one after another, and it's impossible to reach an actual infinity by successive addition, then it follows that it's impossible that the past could be actually infinite. And because if the past was infinite, it would have to be actually infinite, then that means that the past can't be actually infinite. This means there has to be some beginning point to the universe, some first moment. So, if whatever begins to exist has a cause, and the universe began to exist, then it follows that the universe has a cause. Because this cause is the origin of space and time, it must itself be spaceless and timeless. It would make no sense to say that something that created space already had some element of space to it, and similarly with time. It also must be immaterial, as material things require some space to exist in. Lastly, it must be something at least powerful enough to create the universe. And keep in mind here that the word power doesn't necessarily mean raw force or energy. but rather it just means the ability to actualize some state of affairs. Some people also argue that this cause must be personal, though in my opinion, these arguments are somewhat less certain than the other arguments for its spaceless, timeless, and immaterial nature. At the very least, this argument goes to show that a spaceless, timeless, and immaterial entity with the power to create the universe did, in fact, create the universe. That's all for this video, so thank you very much for watching. If you like the video and want more of it, without a doubt, click the like button and subscribe. If you have any questions about the Kalam cosmological argument, or comments of any sort, objections, don't hesitate to leave them down in the comments. That would be awesome. So stay tuned for my next video on arguments for and against the existence of God, where I'll be going over objections to the Kalam cosmological argument. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you then.